the darkness turns to light. No, wait, you feel alive. You're floating in the air. There's lightness everywhere. Watch the stars turn, signals from another place. See the colors burst, lifting off to outer space. On a new path, waking up, it's not too late. There's no time to waste. We will elevate. Blowing up the blue skies, journey to a new day. We are traveling with our gravity, reaching the horizon. We just keep on rising. We are traveling with our gravity. Nothing brings us down. 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 We are traveling with our You're carried by the sun. New chapters have begun. Tomorrow never ends. You're rising up again. Watch the stars turn, signals from another place. See the colors burst, lifting off to outer space. On a new path, waking up, it's not too late. There's no time to waste. We will elevate. Blue skies turning to a new day. We are traveling with our gravity.
Live from iRacing's virtual circuit Zolder, we say good afternoon, sim racing fans, and welcome to the second race weekend of iRacing's newest pro-level eSports championship. This is races 3 and 4 of the FIA SIMAGIC F4 eSports Global Championship. And as always, happy that you're with us on the iRacing eSports Network. Myself, Evan Pasoko, Joey Atterbury with you. And Joey, last week it was I would say, opportunistic Alex Dunn, who, despite leading and starting from pole in race number 2, took home both race wins last week in Italy and Japan. He didn't lead the most laps in either of those races. The story of the opening weekend of this championship has been passing at a premium, making moves when they matter the most, and we'll see if those trends continue tonight as we get set to head to 2 new countries.
It was eerily similar, kind of the landscape of those opening races, and you're right, with Alex Dunn kind of hanging out in both of them, and then kind of opportunistic on the last lap of the first one and the last couple laps of the second one, claiming the victory for both.
It was Luke McEwen who started from pole to kick things off at Mugello, but Alex Dunn led 1 lap en route to victory lane in Italy and 2 laps en route to victory lane in Japan. And now here for this second race weekend, it'll be Zolder and Portimao playing host to rounds 3 and 4 of this Global Championship Series, which will bring us already to the halfway point in this 8-round championship. Of course, these tracks only announced 1 day ahead of time, so we would typically ask drivers post-race what they're thinking about these tracks. Well, we didn't know that we would be racing here, Joey, until just yesterday. So I'm sure these drivers have been putting a lot of practice in over these last 24 hours.
Yeah, not just at Zolder, but also that second track, Portimao, that we're going to be going to. So yeah, 24 hours is not really a whole lot to learn these tracks. And not only that, but they also only have 1 lap to do in qualifying over there. So you know that the drivers have just been practicing away. And speaking of that circuit Zolder, it's only about 45 minutes east of Brussels over there in Belgium. 10 turns, 2.49 miles in length, first opened in 1963, and it's a little bit more of a medium speed racetrack with aggressive chicanes throughout. Turns number 1 and 2 are surprisingly fast with very, very few visual references, which actually leads to that first sector being the fastest in the top speed, but threshold late braking into those aggressive chicanes can make or break a lap time here. And then finally, that last sector, very flat in terms of the elevation, and also includes some of the slowest turns all lap. Watch out for late lunges and to try to force those defensive maneuvers, which can kind of lead to the opportunities, those switchbacks, those over-under opportunities leading into turn number 1.
Yeah, many of the original sweeps and long straights from when this racetrack opened, to your point, back in the 60s, have been modified for safety since then and through the decades, but this place remains a very fast circuit. Let's talk through the format for what we'll see here tonight. It'll be 2 different races, and each will follow this same format. So we'll kick things off with a fixed setup race here in Zolder. These drivers are all participating in the iRacing FIA Formula 4 car on fixed setups. That means that everybody's cars set up identically, and the changes are going to be coming from behind the wheel and not what is under the hood. Lone qualifying, that is happening now. Only 1 lap, so there is no go out there, get in a decent lap time and try to push. You are 1 and done. And maybe pun intended, because Alex Dunn and many of the others who started up front finished up front previously. Track position was a relatively important story last week. We'll see if it is again here in this one. And we also saw a certain level of attrition. These are 20-minute timed races. These are very much sprints. So if you don't qualify well and if you end up in the mid-pack, you really have to be aggressive. And we saw at least a handful of issues in each of the races during race weekend number 1.
You're right. Track position is always important, and the shorter those races do get, the more important it is to qualify well, and just kind of feeds into that 1 lap qualifying and the 24 hours of practice. These drivers have to be up to speed in these iRacing FIA F4 cars because they have to be comfortable at every single one of these racetracks. And then just kind of reiterate what you said about those previous races. It was about 4 or 5 cars that had that little breakaway, and I also see a familiar name that's starting on pole up front on this one.
Yeah, it looks like that the top 3 in our championship for the moment, all top 10 cars in qualifying. We'll we'll see if they're able to try to build a title defense or if somebody else is going to step up to the plate and make some moves here in this second race weekend. And again, equal points on the line for both this opening race today at Zolder and when we head to Portugal later on this afternoon for round number 4 of this championship at Portimao. So we encourage you to stay with us through both of these, as there is going to be 2 very different racetracks on the board, and we'll see if we get 2 different results, unlike last weekend. The qualifying session has drawn to a close. So with that, let's head down trackside and take a look at your iRacing starting grid for round number 3. And it is the second pole of this young season for Luke McEwen. The number 96 will start from pole position. He will be joined on the front row by the number 7. That is Nicholas Rubilar. And then your 2-time race winner this season, the Irishman, the 22 of Alex Dunn, starts on the inside of row number 2. That'll be alongside the 71 of Aaron Vasquez. Alejandro Sanchez enters tonight as the second place driver in the season standings. He starts on the inside of row number 3 alongside Martin Kadlacek.
And then in 7th is Victor Miranda. Next to him on row number 4 is going to be Graham Carroll. Leo Ovcharov starting in the 9th position with Jackson Resende next to him in 10th. Felipe Cabrera going to be starting off on row number 6 with Moritz Lohner there next to him.
13th spot will go to Damon Woods. That'll be the insider in number 7 with Benny Roberts alongside. Jaden Ladich and Felipe Dantas will make up row number 8. It'll be Alejandro Centra and Felipe Juliato on row number 9.
Then Shoma Shintani starting in 19th with Kazuki Fujita next to him. Khalib Hides here in 21st with Hayata Asaga in 22nd. Cody Deeth and Gordon Much rounding out row number 12.
Much going to be the first driver, I should say, in line, who will start based on provisional. So will Hugh Barter. So will Ralph Benitez. So those final 3 names not taking a time in the qualifying session. Your top 23 will do so. And with Luke McEwen, who had a very strong start to the race season, I should say, a couple of weeks ago. Again, started with a pole position in that race in Mugello. It did not translate into a result in victory lane. He enters tonight not in the top 3 in the championship. I think we know he has the speed. Tonight going to be a story of execution for McEwen to see if he can pull through. All cars lined up on the grid, ready for race number 3 of this FIA SIMAGIC F4 eSports Global Championship. Let's go racing in Belgium. We're off and away. McEwen clear for the race lead, 3 wide, second spot, Alex Dunn in the center, inside curve, it's Rubilar, and there are still 3 wide, tons of contact, Aaron Vasquez through on the inside to P2.
Our 2-time winner, Alex Dunn, definitely getting muscled around a little bit and now falls all the way back to 5th. It's your pole sitter, Luke McEwen, who's trying to run away from this angry hornet's nest. Look at 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, all single file, but into the first chicane, you gotta get it through the funnel.
Looks like pretty successful. More 3 wide. Back in the mid-pack as everybody tries to pounce on this aggressive start. That may be Felipe Loyola's center of it all. Back it out of the 3 wide. That was Jaden Ladich, who did not want to be a part of it and let those 2 go on through in a high-speed game of chicken. That's Lohner, the black and yellow 79 car outside of the racetrack. Damon Woods now going to end up on the outside as these corners flip back in that red, white, and black car down low. Outside, Lohner clear, overruns a little bit on corner exit. He'll kick up some dust as they head through turns number 8, 9, and now to the final left-right kink turn number 10 as we look to come to the end of lap number 1. Lohner wins out in that battle, and Luke McEwen leads after the first 2.49 miles.
Leads by almost a full second over Aaron Vasquez out front, so I think that this battle that we're watching right here, which is probably right about 6th, 7th, Graham Carroll, remember he was on the podium there in Okayama, took advantage late in the race of some kind of disaster going on right in front of him. He finds himself right back in the thick of things, trying to crack into that top 5.
And there was some trouble on the opening lap of this race. You see on your scoring pylon left of the screen, at least 4 different drivers down on pit road for repairs. And it all started with a huge checkup Cody Deeth, one of the drivers who got airborne. Watch it on the bottom of your screen. They all start checking up, headed into the chicane. Deeth can't stop in time. That car goes airborne. Several more damaged. Again, 4 total on pit road. Deeth's night all but guaranteed to be done after all 4 tires left the racing surface.
Remember how I said there's some aggressive chicanes here at Zolder? Well, evidently the first chicane on the first lap brought out its fangs for sure. And it's also worth to noting that the apex curbs on that first chicane incredibly tall, so it doesn't help the situation when everybody is stacked in. Now this final set of turns, turn number 10 here, I call it the third chicane. It's kind of slow, drawn out, tedious, but you still have to be careful of those bread box curbs at apex. They can upset the platform of the car.
Most of the drivers involved in the contact started high teens, low 20s. I mentioned as well that mid-pack is where things are going to be crazy, and it ended up being the case on lap number 1. Rubilar a little bit wide in the number 7 machine. This is a battle for 3rd spot on track. Kadlicic's going to try to fight him, and there is plenty more going on as well. Does Kadlicic make a move as they'll swing back down to the back straightaway portion of this racetrack, headed off at turn number 4 to the Klein chicane, turn number 5, looking to the inside. Does it make the move? And he will set back and reset all of this again for 3rd on back. McEwen and Vasquez running away early in this one.
Yeah, you've got to remember that Kadlicic had a good solid top 5 in that first race of the season over there at Mugello, so evidently trying to move up the order and try to grab his first podium of the year. I know that he's been autocrossing a ton pretty much ever since he was able to walk, and now actually competes in some TCR cars over there in Eastern Europe. So I think he's putting some of that real-world motorsports knowledge to its test right here.
There was a good look off of the back of the rear wing from Rubilar's machine, the number 7. Again, you can see the gap growing between what is a 3-way battle now with Rubilar, Kadlicic, and Dunn for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And it's not a battle yet, but Vasquez, P2, faster than your race leader McEwen the last time by, to the tune of about 0.3 of a second. So keep a half eye on that. The Donnie 6 no longer simply strolling away.
Yeah, and you're speaking to my heart here, Evan. That's the hard data points. I love analyzing everything that's going out there on the racetrack. You're right. Our second place runner is hunting down our leader, but are we going to see something similar to what we saw in the opening rounds where they're just going to actually play nice and try to run away? Because right now, Vasquez is actually running away from 3rd place.
Check it out. You saw basically everybody kicking up some dust as they all went into the grass, exited turn number 4. Here's on board with your challenger, Aaron Vasquez, trying to chase down McEwen up front. It's the second time McEwen started from pole this year. We have yet to see the driver who leads the most laps take home the race win. More fighting as well elsewhere on the racetrack. This is all for 7th on back. The red number 29 is Graham Carroll, and the aggressor, the number 17 of Victor Miranda on the gearbox, looking to the outside, trying to find a way around. That's in turn 8 and 9.
Victor Miranda, definitely some of the best in these Formula F4 cars, and you see Graham Carroll go defensive here into turn number 10, going to try to force Victor the long way around there. So evidently that red Scuderia Ferrari HP eSports team member has a mirror full of a competitor right now. You see it go full defensive down into turn number 1. Let's see if this leads Victor to go long way around. You can keep your foot in a contact between the two, and they both find themselves spinning out into the gravel.
Carroll going to do a full 360. He'll take the escape road, blend back out onto the racetrack. Going to be more spots lost for the other car in that battle, who was beached off it in the sand, and it went all wrong in the battle for 7th spot as Victor Miranda tried to go the long way around. They touched. Miranda got stuck in the sand trap, had to do about a 6-point turn to get that car back on the racetrack, and Miranda will fall all the way down to 22nd in the running order. Slightly less bad for Graham Carroll. He still falls, though, outside of the top 10 to P12. Both of those race cars will continue on.
They'll continue on, but with only 13 minutes, losing all of that track position, it will be an uphill battle for them to kind of regain it all back. And kind of in the blink of that lap and a half, Aaron Vasquez has closed it in to now call it a quarter of a second between himself and Luke McEwen, our leader, and in the process has ditched out that number 7 who's sitting there in 3rd place by 1.5 seconds. So I do feel like this black and yellow number 71 of Aaron Vasquez is the car to beat here at Zolder.
And while those top 2 cars run away with it, we watched the battle for what is going to be 3rd on back, and it was not a good lap for Martin Kadlachik the last time by. Just a few laps ago, he was scored up in the number 4 spot. He's now P6, as both Alejandro Sanchez and Alex Dunn have been able to get around him. So he'll fall to the tail end of this trio, and Dunn and Sanchez pushing the pace, already gapping Kadlachik and Lohner for the number 6 and 7 spots. It may be too little too late, though, for your championship leader, Alex Dunn, and the driver second in the championship standings, Alejandro Sanchez, to catch those top through, but they are going to do their very best. Let's wind the tape back and watch again the contact with Graham Carroll in the battle for P7.
Victor just kind of squeeze it down to the apex. I thought that there was probably enough room for both cars there at the turn 1 apex, and that's what we call a racing incident. 2 drivers going hard for the same spot, and unfortunately, sometimes contact can happen.
And again, you saw Carroll right to the escape road. He was able to keep on going. Miranda took longer. Miranda has brought that car to pit road, so the race appears to be done for Victor Miranda in the number 17 machine, while Carroll still with a half-fighting chance of salvaging the top 15, top 10 out of this race still. This trio continues to race on. The next driver up the road that they would try to catch is P3 runner. That is Nicholas Rubelar, who's kind of all on his own right now. He's 2 seconds off of the leader and nearly 2 seconds ahead of this 3-car battle right now. So he may be kind of stationary in 3rd. Could always be worse. And with Carroll and company out of the battle for P7, Moritz Lohner, the big driver who takes advantage because he assumed those 2 spots. Joey leapfrog from 9th to 7th. That makes him one of the biggest movers in this race at +5 spots. Right behind him, side by side, that's Resendez on the inside and Ovcharov topside. They almost got together in the center of the turn.
And this is coming up to that very tall first chicane. I think that Resendez is going to have to yield. Let's see, over, under, almost contact there with the nose cone and the left rear of Ovcharov here. So it stacks up, and all of a sudden Damon Woods in kind of that Falcon colored car right behind was taking a look. He actually thought about making it 3 wide into that first, call it turn number 5 chicane. So this is the 3rd group. We've kind of got our front 2 escaping away, and then a second kind of, call it pack of 4, but this is that 3rd group, all fighting for what is inside the top 10 here. And once again, you see Leo just kind of open the door and try to stick his nose down in the inside of Lohner right there, just trying to take advantage of whatever racetrack is available.
So look on board the Aussie of Damon Woods as he seems pretty calm for being in the middle of a aggressive battle. What you don't see looking out of the front and over the hoop of this race car is he's got a car on his gearbox behind him as well in Jaden Ladich. So it is a 4-car battle. Woods 3rd in line, both trying to be on the offensive while playing defense behind him. Look at all kinds of runoff there nearly into the grass. Drivers have been very aggressive on the curbs on corner exit, and Resendez sees it opening to the inside as it was opened up by Ovcharov, and that'll be 2 spots lost for the 35 car after a little bit of a wiggle on exit.
Damon Woods has done a very good job to kind of be patient throughout this entire battle. He's had opportunities that he's had a tremendous run using the draft or maybe the cars directly in front of him, just kind of tripping over each other on corner exits. So I think the driver of that blue number 56 right now that's up 4 positions might have some more on the table. He's definitely showing some good speed.
This is still one of the biggest packs on the racetrack with this many cars stacked together. You can see kind of a secondary 4-car pack immediately behind this group. It is no surprise that the midfield is where all of the fun is. You are not missing anything up front. McEwen has stabilized his advantage for the race lead. That sits at about 0.6 of a second right now. So Vasquez, who was pushing hard to catch him, has stalled out at least for the moment. We are past halfway point, closing in on 8 minutes left to go in this feature race here at Zolder. That should equate to about 6 laps or so. Time into the white flag will vary depending on where these cars are on track when that clock hits 0. And there's now a split look at the 4-car battle for 4th and the 4-car battle bottom of your screen for 8th position on the back.
And I'm going to get even nerdier about this timing and scoring stuff, because remember Graham Carroll? He was running up inside the top 5 there. Well, he's found himself at the front of, call it the 4th pack, in one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. So I expect him in the number 29 to be closing it to the back of Jaden Leydek. In fact, you see that pack coming out onto the straightaway on the bottom of your screen right there. So not too much time distance between these packs a little bit further back in the midfield.
All of those fights going to continue on. A lot of critical championship points available all throughout the field as we close in on the closing laps of race number 3 of this championship. Back up front, Luke McEwen has led every single lap thus far from pole. Again, we did not see a car who led the most laps win either of the races last week. Ken McEwen established his dominance. And as we continue on this championship and on this road to more than $25,000 in prizes, want you to stay in the loop on everything FIA F4 eSports. For more information on this series and how to become a driver, you can go to iRacing.com/FIA-F4-eSports for more information. I encourage you to follow us all the way through Championship Race Weekend. Going to be later this year on November 2nd. $10,000 on the line to the eventual series champ. And McEwen seems to have the speed to be a contender. It is the UK driver McEwen leading over the Spaniard Vasquez, the Chilean Rubilar in 3rd in international field. Remember, all these drivers, Joey, qualified in through regional series, 12-week championships representing the Americas, the Asia-Pacific region, and Europe. The top 10 from each of those 3 regional series made it to the grid here, and that's why we have such a diverse field of talent.
A huge, diverse field of talent. You see drivers, Japan, France, Brazil, Chile, Scotland, Australia, everywhere. The U.S., there's just, no matter where you look on the globe, there is a driver represented as this battle for what is 9th place between Jackson Resende, Leo Ovcharov, and Jaden Leydek hasn't gone anywhere at all. And remember how I said Graham Carroll and that red number 29 was kind of lurking back there? He was 2.8 seconds. And with this trio hard fighting like they are, they're actually closing in that gap. They got to be careful. 5 minutes left is still plenty of time to lose positions.
It can all come apart late. Carroll, the red car, leading that pack just behind this group. The red car trailing this trio of 3 is Jaden Leydek, who's up 4 spots. It's been a good night for that driver. Jackson Resende was 8th. He got passed up by Damon Woods the last lap. So you see Woods kind of skirting away in the Falcon Tires machine in the number 8 spot. And we'll see if Resende can maintain and hold. There are plenty of these packs. We knew we would see these, right? Groups of 3, groups of 4. This was what we saw last week. And throughout this race, even now into the final 5 minutes, those midfield packs have not broken apart. There's a good live look in at a handful of these drivers, and Ovcharov wiping a bit of sweat off the brow. It's hard work. These guys have not had a moment to breathe. They've basically been in close quarters action from the drop of the green light.
Yeah, I think that's Leo over there on the right, currently sitting in 10th place. He is right on the back of Jackson Resende, who are getting the inside shots from their sim room going through the second chicane, and they got problems right in front of them. I believe that was Alejandro Sanchez, who was running at 4th at the time.
It was Alejandro Sanchez who enters tonight 2nd in the championship standings, has crashed out from a top 5 spot. That is a huge storyline to follow. Meanwhile, more action going on. 2-car battles, as that is Alex Dunn in the number 5 spot and Martin Kadlicek in the 6th spot. They are doing battle. Should be about 3 laps to go or so. That time by the start-finish line, as you see the wounded car on pit road. That was Hugh Barter and others who have had some continuing issues.
I tell you what, the opening rounds for Alex Dunn couldn't have gone more scripted for him, right? He just kind of hung out in that 2nd, 3rd spot and then was able to overtake for the lead. But this race is a completely different script for him. On the opening standing start, he got muscled out of the way, not just once, but twice. And then he just had contact with Sanchez as well. He's having to fight for these positions.
So let's look back and see what happened with Alejandro Sanchez in the battle for fourth. That rear tire got up again with these exposed tires. You get tire-to-tire contact like that. That car got up and in the air. You saw Sanchez continue driving on, but the damage was too much that car eventually went to pit road, and he did so via a tow. So there's going to be a time penalty associated with basically getting that car hooked and taken to pit road. I don't think that car will make it back onto the racetrack. And again, in an 8-round championship, Joey, with the talent level we see here, there is not, in my opinion, margin for error like that. And that is a huge blow to Sanchez, who came into tonight as the P2 driver in the championship standings.
I mean, you highlighted it perfectly as we got Graham Carroll getting a lot of pressure from Felipe Cabrera on the screen here. This is the battle for 11th, and they're kind of arguing now amongst themselves, so they're starting to lose touch to that Jaden Ladick number 99, and Graham Carroll's having to go full defensive. Graham's got to get every single position, every single point he can, because you were just talking about the championship with Alex Dunn in a good position, getting these championship points. Graham Carroll needs to salvage this day after the early mistake.
He is going to be very aggressive. They touched that time as he's getting a lot of contact from behind from Felipe Cabrera on the gearbox, and you saw it loosened up and upset Carroll's machine. Very aggressive stuff in this battle for 11th and 12th. This whole group certainly going to come all the way down to the wire. We'll check back in. But up front, Luke McEwen inside of the final maybe lap and a half of this race. His advantage over Vasquez still stable at 0.6. Rubilar another 1.1 seconds back from Vasquez in third without a moment, without a mistake. Looks like these top three pretty settled, but McEwen still has to execute for at least another trip around.
Especially for McEwen and Vasquez here, they had solid opening rounds, so when we look at that Bob Ross landscape of the championship points, they are capitalizing on what I'm going to call maybe a little bit of a messy opening round here today at Zolder. With all the contact on that opening lap, Luke is doing everything right.
Second time that Luke has started from pole. It's already the second time that he has led the most laps in this race, but he is still looking for race win number 1 of this FIA SIMAGIC F4 Esports Global Championship. Battles throughout the field. Again, they continue on. Graham Carroll and company still fighting. That one for 11th position on back. Carroll still holding off Cabrera. Behind them is Dantas, Sendra, Roberts, and more. We know that those cars going to continue fighting to the end, but at least for the moment, it looks like there is some breathing room for the aforementioned Carroll, who had a spin from a top 10 spot earlier, and the white flag now officially in the air for Luke McEwen. Final couple of times around with only a handful of corners to execute.
He's coming up to this turn number 8 hairpin where the elevation really just kind of flattens out. It's more like a go-kart track, and then once you put the throttle down here, just go through this lane change S, one more brake zone, and a couple downshifts to go.
Clean racetrack up the road as well. Still, the advantage now ballooning to more than a second and a half. It is all Luke McEwen. It's going to be a lead from start to finish. Luke McEwen, first win of the season, victorious in Belgium.
A great drive from pole position. Aaron Vasquez does finish in second with Rubilar rounding out the podium, and Kadlicek tried to overtake Alex Dunn, but your opening back-to-back winner finishes in fourth.
Side by side of the stripe for P8, Resende ahead of Ladich. Battle for 11th on back. Carroll ends up hanging on to that one over Loyola and Dantas, and there were all sorts of mad dashes to the stripe, but in the end, it is Luke McEwen who, when he crossed the start-finish line, breathed more a sigh of relief than a moment of exhilaration because he knew he's had the speed to do this, that he has broken through for his first race win in round number 3. Final margin victory, 1.8 seconds, as Vasquez fell off the back end there in those closing laps. He barely hangs on over Nicholas Rubelar. We'll talk with those top 3 in just a moment. Championship leader Alex Dunn, good recovery for a P4. It's an okay night for him, with Martin Kadlicik in the top 5. Lohner, Woods, Resende, Ladick, and Ovcharov, your top 10.
Across the page, we got Graham Carroll, who salvaged an 11th place finish with Felipe Cabrera there in 12th. Felipe Dantas here in 13th. Sendra in 14th. Benjamin Roberts finishing 15th. Hides in 16th. Asaga, Benitez, Juliato, and Sanchez rounding out the top 20.
And everybody else does not make it to the end of this race. It'll be DNFs for Fujita, Munch, Miranda, Deeth, Shintani, and Barter. Of course, Miranda started top 10. Notable issues for him. Same with Sanchez. Started in a top 5 spot. Going to be a tough blow for the driver who came in tonight P2 in the standings. Well, now let's head trackside. Joey, hand things off to you. We'll talk with tonight's top finishers here from Zolder.
Yeah, standing by here with Luke McCune, our opening winner here today. Congrats on the pole position and the first win.
Yeah, cheers. It was it felt pretty easy, I guess, in the race. I didn't have too much pressure from the start. Obviously Aaron closed up a bit, but yeah, happy with the quality, happy with the race, pretty chill, which is nice, and I'm sure it's going to be a bit different in the next one.
It was pretty textbook, from starting on pole, leading every single lap, and kind of commanding that gap over there. Did you ever feel in threat from Vasquez? Because like you said, he did close it up a couple times on you.
Yeah, obviously I know he's fast, so I know he would be able to close up in the slipstream, but it never got to a point where I was really worried. I just focused on doing my own laps, didn't have to take any risks. Yeah.
Well, congrats on, call it a textbook opening round here at Zolder. Good luck over there at Portimao.
Thank you.
That was our race winner, Luke McCune. I think we've got Aaron Vasquez lined up next here. Aaron, congratulations on the second place at Zolder.
Thank you, guys. That's awesome.
What did you need to go up there and challenge Luke for that race win?
I don't know, he's so fast, so my goal in this race is survive in the first lap and then try to push for finish P2. And when I started in P4, I think, I saw Alex Dunn crashing with Nicholas, and I tried to go inside for overtake this guy. So yeah, I try and I overtake, so I'm happy.
I have to ask you, on that very, very last lap, it seemed like there was maybe a little bit of a mistake that caused Nicholas to close it up there. What happened?
Yeah, in the last lap, I blocked the rear tires in my car, and I say, what the fuck I'm doing? So yeah, in that part, it was very bad, in my opinion, for me, because I don't need to push too much in the last lap because I have a big gap behind. So that's my bad for do that, but was fine, to be honest. I'm very happy with the race, so let's see what happens in the next one.
Well, Aaron, congratulations on your first podium of the season, and good luck over there at Portimao.
Thank you, guys. See you.
Well, Evan, that was your winner and second place here at Circuit Zolder.
I'll say it to use an American sports adage, right? A lot of people will say a series hasn't started until a road team has won a game. I would say that a racing championship hasn't started until we've had a different race winner. And the Alex Dunn show is over, right? Still a top 5 finish, still in a good position in the championship. But with our first new race winner in McEwen, I think we could officially say this battle is on.
I agree with you, and I look at some of those drivers that were maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th in the championship that needed to capitalize on an early good day. They did it.
So Luke McEwen is victorious in race number 1 of the afternoon. We'll step aside, and when we come back, we'll preview round number 4. We're headed to Portugal when we get back.
available now.
Racing's coverage of the FIA SIMAGIC F4 eSports Global Championship is brought to you by World of Outlaws Dirt Racing 24. World of Outlaws Dirt Racing 24 takes the official game of the World of Outlaws to the next level, featuring 2 new series, new tracks, and an all-new challenge mode, and all-new gameplay features like adjustable wing and variable track states. For more information, visit worldofoutlaws.game.com. By Exocross. Take it out of this world off-road racing experience with Exocross. Master 3 unique vehicles, advance through 6 championships in career mode, and take on dozens of unique challenges and special events to show off your speed. Exocross is available now. Visit exocrossgame.com for more information. And by SIMAGIC. Dominate like the pros with SIMAGIC, a leading sim racing manufacturer. Try our modular P1000 pedals with haptics or our best-selling GT NEO wheel. Stay tuned for all new wheelbases and more on the horizon. We're getting ready to turn our sights to the second half of this race weekend as we head to Portugal and to the Algarve International Racing Circuit. But with the first one in the books, we are now 3 races through this 8-round championship. And while some drivers in the points, Alex Dunn notably with a P4, Graham Carroll with a, I will say, good bounce back after an accident, 3rd in the standings, finishes 11th, and certainly could have been a lot worse for him. There is still, I think, going to be some shuffling in those standings.
I think so too, and I was specifically talking about Luke and Vasquez back there, kind of the 4th, 5th, 6th place in the championship. They outscored Alex Dunn, so they were able to close that gap and able to kind of inch their way forward, hoping to become one of those championship contenders. Because I tell you what, Alex Dunn's gap after those first 2 rounds was quite impressive.
Yeah, he had a perfect 50 points after having taken home the race win in each of the first 2 rounds of this series. But right now, it is a tie at the top of the mountain. 25 points to the race win is a big jump back to P2, and Luke McEwen has knotted things up. He didn't even come into that race number 3 in Belgium in the top 3 in the standings. He and Alex Dunn now tied for the championship lead. Vasquez right up there as well. He ends up in a number 2 spot. So those are 2 drivers, McEwen and Vasquez, who were not in the top 3 that are now because of good runs.
Yeah, and you had called it earlier. It's just every single day is worth points out here. When I think of a championship, sometimes it's your worst days that actually win you those best points.
Yeah, we'll take a look back at some of the highlights from the first race of the day. as we take a look back to what happened at Zolder. And it was dramatics on lap number 1. Several cars take it out in the opening lap of this race, some of them up and in the air. And then it was Graham Carroll, who notably, as third in the championship, involved in an accident with Victor Miranda. He bounced back to try to salvage some points, but it was still costly.
And then the other big one a little bit later was definitely this Sanchez incident, as well as Alex Dunn. Alex was able to get away unscathed, but unfortunately his buddy ended up into that guardrail and pretty much had to take 0 points for the race.
And again, these points are heavily weighted, not just for the race winner, obviously, with 25 points, second place in the standings with less, but I think it's also worth noting, and I don't know if we've touched on this yet, Joey, when we talk about consistency being key, looking at the point structure, we have a 30-car field, right? 30 drivers are eligible for these events. Points only pay to the top 15. So if you have a bad night like that, it's difficult to salvage anything because half the field walks away empty-handed. So that's why in a short season, as we start to look forward now to race number 4, it is critical to not make that highlight reel or maybe the lowlights of the highlight reel with those mistakes because they're just so costly.
And to your point, if you follow a lot of real-world racing, I guess the point structure is similar to Formula 1 as you can really get it, right? Points only pay out to the top 10 there. They only pay out to top 15 over here. So, yeah, I think consistency is extremely important. So we're going to see kind of those same groups of drivers get up towards the front because consistency does pay off. And the drivers that are fast, well, guess what? You need to put together an entire championship run. There is a difference between becoming practice champion and becoming the champion of a series.
And I had alluded to this earlier as well, but this season will pay out a total of $25,000 in prize money, $10,000 of which will go to the series champion. So these are real races with real consequences. And we look forward to the 4th race of this championship as we are going to head to Portugal for the first time this season. We'll step aside. When we come back, we head to the Algarve International Circuit. Race 4 of the FIA SIMAGIC F4 eSports Global Championship is next. From iRacing's virtual Algarve International Circuit in Portimao, Portugal, we welcome you back to iRacing's coverage of the 2024 FIA SIMAGIC F4 eSports Global Championship. Round number 3 in the first race of today's doubleheader from Belgium has come and gone. It is Luke McEwen who has entered the winner's circle and tied for the championship lead. And now we hit the reset button and do it all over again. As always, Joey Atterbury, myself, Evan Pasoko, in the booth with you. And we go to a very different challenge to what we just saw at Zolder here as we head to Portimao and to Portugal for the 4th race of this 8-race championship. And we will cross the halfway point on this 8-week road right here.
Yeah, we started over there in Italy, hopped on the virtual jet to Japan, and then we found ourselves at Zolder earlier today. Now we find ourselves in Portugal at Portimao, another roller coaster of a ride. But after today, we still have 2 more rounds after this.
All these drivers qualified through very regional specific championships through the Americas, Asia Pacific, and Europe. The top 10 from each of those regional championships qualified to make this field of 30. And we made the point before Zolder, they didn't know we'd be racing into Belgium and Portugal until yesterday. So they have used context clues on a lot of the tracks we've gone to have been ones that they raced at in those regional qualifiers, but a lot of the very specific stuff hasn't happened until recently. And you're not going to get any real practice time in between rounds to learn this racetrack, so they should have a good idea coming in as we look at this racetrack.
A relatively new racetrack located just about 20 minutes from downtown Portimao in Portugal. That means it's less than a half hour from the beach on the southern side there. It's a roller coaster of a circuit where elevation changes, trust me, abundant and often throughout this entire lap. It's deceptively fast because this track is incredibly wide throughout its entirety. There's a few key corners that can ruin your lap as well. Some sections, they're very, very technical because they lead into multiple apexes immediately after. And then you notice that long, bending, arcing right-hand turn, that final turn, the run to the line with that slight little incline. It's always a challenge. It's always a sprint because that start-finish line actually pretty early in the run.
Despite having opened most recently in 2008, making it, of course, maybe one of the youngest tracks we'll visit all year. Those characteristics you talk about certainly give it an old-school feel. We had alluded to points that if you're just joining us, Luke McEwen took home the first race win of this day earlier in Zolder. He has tied Alex Dunn. Dunn came into tonight with a championship lead. You can see those drivers now very close in the number 1 and 2 positions. Dunn right now being scored on top. So McEwen entering the conversation. We know that Sanchez had a bit of a rough go at it in the most recent one, but was able to bounce back. Graham Carroll, most notably, was 3rd. He slides to P4 after being involved in an accident. So mistakes for a handful of drivers have shook up the way the standings look as we come into this one, and shows that every round of this 8-race championship going to be so critical. And talking about race format and all of those other elements, nothing changes, right? We really rinse, wash, and repeat, except for the fact that everything that happens on the track itself is different. Drivers right now participating in a single lap and single car qualifying session. So while they're all qualifying at the same time, they are all qualifying on an empty racetrack. You are not having to deal with hazards from the other cars, but it is 1 lap and done. So there is really no margin for error. And again, I think we saw the biggest mover in that last race, Joey, maybe up 5, 6, 7 spots. A lot of those were from the rear and aided by other cars wrecking out. So qualifying continues to be very important.
Qualifying's always going to be important, but what I like to see is when we were taking a look at that championship points, there was a lot of drivers that didn't fare too well in rounds 1 and 2 that actually had a decent little bounce back there in Zolder and were able to put themselves on the board. And you kept saying the championship is so important, and we also got to remember it's fixed setup out here. It's a spec car, spec racing, so every single one of these competitors, they have the exact same piece of virtual equipment underneath them, and they have to understand that, go out there to each one of these tracks on that 24-hour notice, be able to get up to speed immediately. So the more comfortable they are in their own sim rig at their own home, the more comfortable they're going to be when they learn these tracks on only a 24-hour notice and then actually have to go out there and perform.
We also saw plenty of side-by-side battles to the stripe in that last race, but they were for 4th, 7th, 11th, what have you. That's different for us. The fact that McEwen kind of cruised to a race win. The 2-second margin, I think, will kind of muddy the history for it because it was more so 6-7 tenths until there was a late mistake in that race. But we had seen last lap or second to last lap passes in each of the previous 2 races. We did not see that in Zolder. It was McEwen green to checker, which again was new and kind of establishing dominance that we had yet to see thus far. Again, that single car qualifying session happening now, and we will get set for our second 20-minute timed race. Points paid out the same here in Portugal as they were earlier in Belgium at Zolder. 20 minutes is the format for all the races, and those fixed setups, to your point, oh so critical because all those changes, all those differences, it'll be coming from behind the wheel as opposed to anything with the car and anything team specific.
And I think speaking of changes, as we take a look back at some of the action that we had at Zolder, this is going to be a completely different landscape of a race here at Portimao, call it, because the track, it's totally different. At Zolder, it's relatively narrow, and you really have to kind of mind your P's and Q's with how you race people side by side. We saw a lot of contact, a lot of wheel-to-wheel contact that eventually almost ended up with cars completely upside down. But here at Algarve, it is a completely different landscape. It is so wide. You have racing room to go 2 and even 3 wide in some sections, but those corner entries leading into the very, very technical sectors, they can catch drivers out.
And I'll say as well, because this is a newer track, and with safety being paramount, obviously, with racetracks being retrofitted, there are a lot more paved runoffs at this racetrack that we did not see at Zolder, right? I think so many times we saw one car go off the curbs on an exit, start kicking up some dust, and then the next 4 or 5 cars in line kind of followed those cars off track. We saw some drivers get a little bit squirrely, have some issues by going off the racetrack. Obviously, they can't just run anywhere that's paved, but there may be a little bit of a larger margin for error for these drivers because it's not going to be as cutthroat when it comes to putting a tire in the wrong spot and ended up in trouble.
You bring up an excellent point. Yeah, there's tons of paved runoff here, but you can't just go driving off the racetrack as we get kind of a little sneak peek of the solo qualifying sessions and some of the cars and drivers that are still out there. But yeah, lots of paved runoff here at Portimao. It can kind of be a two-edged sword, right? You can carry too much speed and know you're a little bit safe because you've got that margin for error that you can just kind of overstep the limit and it's still paved out there. However, as we've seen with F4 competition, if you are not on the racing line, there is a whole train of hungry racers behind you that are waiting to take that spot.
It's a live look in there with the TC Course eSports machine of Hayata Asaga out of Edogawa, Japan, as the live look at the leaderboard also left of your screen with about a minute left on the clock. Most of these drivers, again, only the 1 lap counts. But most of these drivers are actually running several laps in this qualifying session. They're doing their first lap, they get their time in. I don't think anything's going to change on the left-hand side, right? This is a 10-minute session. I don't think anyone's waiting till the final 60 seconds to get their one-timed lap in, but a lot of them are still going in and putting some additional practice laps in just to reacquaint themselves with their braking points and some other things, because it is pretty tricky to just kind of flip your brain over, having to learn so many intimate details about Zolder, and then all of a sudden throw that out the window. We're going to a completely different racetrack in 10 minutes.
The key word you said, practice. It is extra practice time, and the warmer you can keep your brain and that muscle memory going into the grid and into that start, the more fresh you're going to be to attack turn number 1. So yeah, you might not see times pop up at the end of it, but trust me, the practice is important.
And with that, the clock will strike 0, and qualifying here in Portimao has drawn to a close. So let's go down trackside and take a look at your iRacing starting grid for race number 4 of this FIA SIMAGIC F4 Esports Global Championship. And it is the first pole position of the season for Felipe Cabrera. He will bring us to the green flag tonight alongside Martin Kadlachik in second. Row number 2, we'll see Nicholas Rubilar and Alejandro Sanchez make up starting spots 3rd and 4th. And on row 3, it'll be Leo Alfjarov and Hugh Barter through position number 6.
On row number 4, starting in 7th, is Damon Woods with Luke McCune just hopping out of victory lane. He'll start in 8th place position. Graham Carroll there in 9th with Alex Dunn, a top 10 starting spot. Maurice Lohner here in 11th with Victor Miranda starting next to him on row number 6.
Takes us about halfway home through the field. Gordon DeMuch and Ralph Benitez going to be on row number 7. Aaron Vasquez and Jaden Ladich midfield, so a little bit of work to do there. Felipe Dantist and Benny Roberts, they'll be starting 17th and 18th.
We got Jackson Resenda here in the number 51 with Cody Deeth lined up next to him in 20th place. Alejandro Sendra will start in 21st with Kazuki Fujita next to him on row number 11. On row 12, we have Felipe Juliato and Khalib Hides.
In final row number 13, it'll be Shoma Shintani and Hayata Asaga, the pair of the Japanese drivers, going to be on row 13. It will round out our field. Did mention earlier in Zolder that a handful of drivers at the back of the pack were starting based on provisionals. That is not the case here tonight. Every single car puts down a time at qualifying, Joey, about 15 seconds away from the lights going green.
It's pretty impressive, and they are all stacked up, just patiently waiting right now for Barney to flip on those lights, and then we'll hear the revs climb up, and we will have that standing start to start round number 4.
Felipe Cabrera started this season with an 11th place finish and a 22nd place finish. Trying to bounce back. He has pole position for race number 4 of this championship. Let's go racing in Portugal. Trouble already, several cars into the inside barrier before the leaders even get down to turn number 1. It was Asaga and Benitez up front, battle for the race lead. It is still in the number 1 spot, Cabrera leading the pack, but not by much. Kadlachik aggressive, and now more spinners in the midfield.
Just chaos. Call it from the middle of the pack and back between the front straightaway and also that turn 3 and 4 complex. But it is your pole sitter, Felipe Cabrera. He's trying to run away with Martin Kadlachik right behind. And then comes the huge swarm. Call it 3rd through 12th place, all connected in a train.
Yeah, those top 6 or so single filed out, 7th on back, and Luke McEwen getting swallowed up by Damon Woods and others as the midfield is aggressive. Look at all the elevation changes. They go way down the hill into a left-hand kink, turn number 11, double set of right corners, 10 and 11. This is a long racetrack, 2.89 miles in length, as it is Cabrera leading up front over Kadlachik. Top 2 trying to gap the field. The midfield still wide open after we've seen more trouble on the opening lap of this race than it may be in any of the others thus far.
We come around these final couple corners here to complete lap number 1, and you're right, maybe a little bit messy off of the initial lap of things, but this long sweeping right-hander kind of gives us a chance to catch our breath up this short little tabletop onto the front straightaway. Let's see the slipstream here. We didn't see the slipstream at Zolder. It just wasn't big enough, and a pass for the lead already.
Here comes Kadlachik to the inside, and Cabrera breaks early, lets that pass happen. So Kadlachik, early change for the race lead. Cabrera did get the first lap of this race led. Now we'll see if he tucks back in line and if we see this cat and mouse game using the draft like we saw in the opening 2 rounds of this championship last week, or a couple of weeks ago, I should say. Ada Bugello and Okayama. Couple of spots up for grabs. Dive into the inside there. That's the battle with a 68 machine of Hugh Barter under the 7 Arubalar. Off onto the rumble strips, but not giving up. That bright yellow 7 car going to fight back. Outside in one corner will equate to the inside in the next, and he'll use that preferred position in turn number 7 to maintain that spot. Let's wind it back and take a look at the trouble we had right on the start of this race.
Yeah, you see just kind of posturing to get to the inside of the racetrack. It goes wrong for several of the competitors, and I see about a handful of them out of the race right now, including Benitez, Ladek, Roberts, Much, and Fujita.
Yeah, a handful of them got taken out right there on the starting grid. The other handful had that secondary issue a couple of corners later. That is a handful of cars out of this race already in the blink of an eye. Battle for 4th is from Rubilar on back. A couple of drivers have gained a spot. Some have lost a spot, but no big movers inside of the top 8. They've all, again, up 1, -1, but pretty consistent in the speed, aided by the fact that a lot of those challenges and the accidents happened outside of the top 10. Long run down to turn number 1. Does Kadlecic hold on to the race lead? He does. No challenge from Cabrera for the number 1 spot. Looks like no challenge anywhere there inside the top 6 or 7.
The big note that I took about the slipstream on the front straightaway, though, is on that opening lap, Martin Kadlecic was able to easily make the pass well before turn number 1. He didn't make the pass before the start-finish straightaway, so I don't know if the sprint to the line on the very final lap is going to work, as now Felipe Cabrera takes a look to the inside. This is so steep downhill, you got to make sure to whoa up the car, but look at Kadlecic try to do an over-under, and now he lifts off. He decides he actually just wants to follow Felipe for a couple of corners.
He took the corner like he was going to go for the crossover. I think the uphill hurt him. Here's that second incident. One car goes around, blocks the racetrack again. That was in turn number 2, so a pair of incidents and only sector yellow flags in these races. No safety cars, no full course cautions. So drivers who are obviously turned around or damaged in the opening laps of these races really hurt, because there is no opportunity to bounce back from something like that. Race leaders trying to get a little bit of space in between them, watching some of the other fights that are going on track. This one in the battle for 7th spot. The very easy to spot green rims on Luke McEwen's machine, your race winner earlier this afternoon at Zolder. Again, kind of got pounced at the start, lost a spot. He's down to 7th. He's ahead of Carroll, Vasquez, and others who are in this pack right here, about 3 seconds and change behind the race leaders.
If Aaron Vasquez is able to use the slipstream, or if he pushes Luke. You know what? He's going for the bump draft maneuver. So I think that these two that finished 1st and 2nd at Zolder, they see, call it the 1.5, 1.7 second gap that's in front of Luke right now. And they actually want to try to work together to close it in to try to maximize their championship points. So I think that's actually a very important move, a very smart move from these championship contenders. Go catch the group.
Look at this battle for 2nd spot, all behind Loyola. I mean, there is aggressive stuff up towards the front of the field as everybody chasing down race leader Kadlecic. Sanchez through to P2, and the driver going backwards is Felipe Cabrera Loyola. Dropped 2 spots off of the race lead. It may not be done yet. The 79 car has got Rubilar and Barter all over the gearbox. It's 3 yellow cars lined up, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Redemption from Sanchez there, who's sitting in that 2nd place. If he can run away and try to catch Kadlecic, remember, he had that contact while being inside the top 5 at Zolder, so you know he's looking for a little bit of a redemption drive. But I'm extremely impressed with the pace out of Kadlecic. Usually at a track like this, the slipstream is strong enough to kind of pull everybody up to that rear wing, but Martin just kind of setting the world on fire.
Here's an on-board look with Leo Ovcharov, the driver to Long Beach, California. The 35 car down 1 spot, but still in this same pack and fighting with all of the cars at which he started, kind of on the back foot as they again come off of what is that sweeping final corner, turn 15, and look at them all serpentining left and right, trying to catch the toe and stay in the draft of the cars ahead of him. Ovcharov kind of knew that he wasn't close enough to take advantage. He stayed in line. In front of him, side by side, that is Cabrera around Sanchez in a battle for P2. How about 2 sets of side by side right in front of Ovcharov?
It looked like a pace car at full speed, and Rubilar, who thought he was going to get a position, is actually going to lose out. So Sanchez now finds himself on driver's right, not the right side of the road for this hairpin here. It's usually the shortest distance that does prevail. So move Cabrera up into 2nd. Sanchez now sitting in 3rd.
And while this aggressive battle for 2nd on back roars on, you'll notice that Kadlecic is nowhere to be seen. The new race leader enjoying the clean air and enjoying not being under fire, as he has gapped this battle by about 1.3 seconds in counting. He would love if Cabrera, Sanchez, and friends keep fighting, because it's making things smooth sailing for the 31 car right now.
We really really haven't seen where it's been one driver or one car that has taken off from the rest. I guess at Zolder, we saw Luke McCune kind of stretch it out, but it kind of accordioned back and forth a few different times. So this is really the first time that we've seen one driver start to pull it out.
Here's a look off of the back of Felipe Cabrera. Mentioned for the driver who started on a pole that he has had a couple of low teen finishes, looking for a little bit more, and would be on pace for his best finish of the season if he could maintain second. However, looking to the outside is Sanchez. Cabrera defends the inside line. He will give that duo on the outside the long way around turn number one. Bit of a right-hander kink. Cabrera stays there. Double right-hander, turn number two, now into three. Can he successfully hold them off? Not going down easy. Alejandro Sanchez trying to punch his way through to second spot. They are still side by side, and Hugh Barter on the gearbox. So Sanchez trying to will that car through to get clear. In the hairpin, he's done it.
I'm very surprised that Hugh Barter opted to push Sanchez rather than make it 3 wide, but now he's thinking about making 3 wide because he's got to leave room on the inside. Almost contact between Barter and Cabrera there, and he's got to go the long way around, but thankfully this racetrack is just filled with lefts to rights to lefts to rights. So when you find yourself on one side of the racetrack, it oftentimes feeds itself out to the other, but this section right here, it is so tricky visually, and you can go skating off on driver's left.
And one of those points drivers left, you see the sand and the kind of capture zone there for those cars. We talk about a lot of the corners here being forgiving. That one is not one of them. Really tight as well, turn 13, and you got to struggle to get the car brought back over to the right-hand turn 14 right here. And this is important because this is all about carrying speed through what is almost a 270-degree corner, turn 15, to bring it all the way back around and unwind onto the front straightaway. Who's got a draft on who? Kadlecic clear up front. Does Cabrera come under fire as we look down the front straightaway? Couple of cars jumping out of line. That looks like it's Graham Carroll. Push it, Aaron Vasquez in a battle for P7, and in front of them a look to the inside for second, but Sanchez stays ahead of Cabrera. Now Cabrera under fire. Barter to the inside of the racetrack. Can the black and yellow 68 car make the move? He was inside for one turn. He's going to be outside, though, for the upcoming hairpin. Let's go 3 wide. To the very inside is Nicholas Rubilar. Who's got the advantage? There's contact. Spinning goes Cabrera.
Cabrera definitely tried to close the door on Rubilar, and that front tire was already there. They made contact, and unfortunately, Cabrera does not have a rear wing, at least that I can see. Rubilar does maintain some sort of track position, but it shuffles things up, and I tell you what, we can't even see Kadlecic anymore. 3.3 seconds out to the lead.
Last lap time for Kadlecic, a 1:43.714. It was 1:44.894 for Sanchez. You're looking at a second per lap. That is not because these cars are a second slower than Kadlecic. It's because they're too busy fighting with each other. Big time bomb by the old red car. That was Graham Carroll trying to make up for some points lost in the first race of this doubleheader, and the Scuderia Ferrari H4 eSports machine is on the move, trying to get around Rubilar. Rubilar held him off. There's a look off of the back of the Scotsman as it is Dunn, Ovcharov, and Dantis just on the horizon. They want to get in on this action also. Carroll looking to the inside on Rubilar. They're going to drag race down to turn number 1, approaching speeds of 151 miles per hour.
Almost contact between the front left tire and the side pod of Rubilar there. And here's another huge lunge from Graham Carroll. I tell you what, the driver of this red number 29 is very, very confident on the brakes, but he's got to check the mirror as well, because that is Alex Dunn who's trying to come back. He's now slipping the nose down to the inside of what is turn number 5. 3 wide. Can Alex Dunn take 2 for 1? It's a drag race going on the uphill with Dunn in the middle.
Rubilar gets the best exit. Dunn slow in the middle, and he's banging wheels that time with Carroll on the outside of the racetrack. Alex Dunn, first, and fourth are the results that we have seen so far this season for the driver of the 22 car. He is trying to improve on what right now is P8. But I'll tell you what, if 8th position is currently the lowest you've been all year, a lot of things have got to be going right for you. And Dunn is in contention to pick up even more spots. Live points right at your screen. Dunn still leads, but it is only by 4 points over Luca McEwen, who won race number 1 of this doubleheader and is outrunning Dunn right now up in P3.
The Plinko disc has certainly bounced the right way for Alex Dunn so far this championship, but today has kind of proven him. He hasn't had the best race at Zolder. He hasn't had the best start at Portimao here, but he's using that racecraft that he can really rely on from all of his GT3 experience with McLaren and whatnot. He's showing that right now and moving towards the front, making passes.
And up front for Martin Kadlecic, it has been feast or famine thus far. 5th in the season opener in Italy, but then 23rd in Japan. Scored no points in that one. Rewind to Belgium earlier today, another P5. So Kadlecic has either been in the money or out of the points. And right now, it is the Czech who is looking for his first win of the season and trying to walk away with a max points haul of 25 to get him up and into the top 5 conversation, I'd say, in these standings. There's an on-board look. He looks calm. He should be. A 3.7 second advantage, I think, is the biggest gap for the race lead we have seen all season.
I just think that Martin is comfortable inside of a race car. He started racing when he was only 5 years old. He was a big-time autocrosser throughout the Czech Republic, and I had mentioned that he's doing TCR right now. So I wonder if kind of these FIA-style tracks where you're just maximizing that corner radius are kind of falling into his forte, if you will.
Certainly seems like it, as he has been so consistent. Jumping back and watching the battle as it continues on. There's a couple of groups right now on the racetrack. Sanchez, McEwen, Vasquez. That battle for second on back is one of them. This group is for 7th on back, led by the 22 of Alex Dunn. That is the primarily black with some yellow car. Behind him, the essentially all yellow driver next in line. That is Nicholas Rubelar. Red car, that's Graham Carroll. And then Ovstrov just behind. And it was a tough start to this championship for Ovstrov a couple of weeks ago. 25th and 28th in the opening doubleheader. Scored no points to kick off this championship, but got a top 10 earlier today in Belgium, looking for another one, but he's under fire. To the inside on him comes Felipe Dantis with a pass.
That was a nice move. I think that's Graham Carroll sliding right up the inside of Rubelar right here. So Graham doesn't want to let go of the top 10. He also sees his championship rival directly in front. Remember, we were talking about how Graham came in P3 in today's championship? Well, he doesn't want to see Alex Dunn outscore him at all. And after Zolder, he realizes he really needs to climb up on there and kind of harass Alex Dunn. See if he can force Alex into some sort of mistake, try to take away a few of those points.
We talked a lot about forced errors in the opening 2 weeks of this series with a lot of those late race battles, applying pressure, being within striking distance. Some drivers would love to force the move. Others would love to force the driver ahead of them into a mistake and pounce when there's an opening. So we watched that battle for 7th. Here's the other one we were talking about for P2 on the back. Sanchez leads this group. Second in line is Luke McEwen in 3rd. Then it's Aaron Vasquez 4th. Hugh Barter in 5th. It has been an incredible drive for Vasquez. For all that I've harped on tonight about track position being important, Joey, Aaron Vasquez has passed 11 race cars to get to where he sits right now.
Done an absolutely tremendous job. I mean, not only himself, but Luke McEwen. Remember, they finished 1st and 2nd at Zolder. And speak of the devil, here comes Vasquez. We're going to go 3 wide, maybe even 4 wide down the front straightaway. Vasquez is on the inside, McEwen all the way on the outside. This is a funnel into turn number 1. Somehow we've made it through, and Vasquez took both positions.
Vasquez has got it for how long? The Apex Racing teammates side by side with Sanchez and McEwen. Battle for P6 behind them rages on also. Graham Carroll makes the pass on Alex Dunn. Carroll now at a race high P6 in this race. And here are the teammates going side by side. Inside advantage will go to Alejandro Sanchez. He gets the spot. And now Luke McEwen's got to deal with Hugh Barter. Does McEwen lose 3 spots in a single lap here? He'll find a spot in line.
This turn 7 and 8 complex, it's so tricky, plus the little uphill compression that you need to rely on the extra grip out of those front tires. I mentioned that Portimao is a roller coaster ride. I think that these camera angles are showing all the blind overcrest, the blind turn-ins, and just the overall commitment level these drivers have to have, even though they can't necessarily see what's around the corner.
And keep an eye on the clock, top left of your screen, closing in on the final minute of this 4th race of the championship. Carroll has kind of peaked with this group. He's up to P6. Hugh Barter, the next driver up the road, more than a 1.5 seconds away. So for Graham Carroll here, you're thinking defense. I don't think you're going to get to the next couple of cars ahead, but there are 1, 2, 3, make it 4 cars that can still pass you before this thing is done. No look to the inside from Dunn. He'll push. Look at the cars ahead of that pack. They are swerving all over the racetrack. 3 wide now to the very inside of the racetrack. Rubilar, Dunn, Carroll into turn number 1. Carroll goes wide. The 7 Rubilar in the middle might pick up a single spot.
Alex Dunn with a very, very savvy over-under with Rubilar, but he finds himself on the outside here at turn number 4. He keeps his foot in it, which isn't the easiest thing to do when you're on that dirty line, and Graham Carroll has secured that 6th place.
Using every inch of this very wide Algarve International Circuit. You talked about these characteristics, and it has been putting on a show. Meanwhile, the timer will tick down to 0 as this race will be official. For Martin Kadlecik at the front of the field, white flag is in the air. He started 2nd, made an early pass on Felipe Cabrera, who has since dropped way outside of the top 10 with some issues. And the driver who has had either great success or no points has really come into his zone in the 2nd weekend of this championship. Earlier today with a top 5 finish at Circuit Zolder, and now trying to eye his first win of this championship. Final time through the sweeping right-hander number turn 15 for Martin Kadlecik, who will come up victorious, headed to a checkered flag in Portugal. It is Kadlecik who dominates.
Just absolute domination from Martin, out front to lead pretty much every single lap and come home with the victory. Look at how close it is behind. I think that's Alex Dunn finishing just behind Graham Carroll. Aaron Vasquez was on the podium with Hugh Barter there finishing in that 3rd place.
You saw them diving to the inside pit wall to seal off the passes in the final few corners of that one. And that reminded me of the fireworks that we saw in the opening 2 weeks of this championship, except it was not fireworks for the race lead, the most dominant race victory that we have seen so far this season. Martin Kadlecik, your winner, to the tune of 4.8 seconds over Aaron Vasquez in 2nd and Hugh Barter in 3rd. We'll try to talk with all of your top finishers in a moment. Alejandro Sanchez comes home for a strong P4 with Luke McEwen backing up his race win earlier this afternoon. With the top 5, it's a good outing for him. Carroll and Dunn, top 3 cars in the championship. They'll score a good points haul in 6th and 7th, ahead of Rubilar, Dantis, and Ovcharov.
Then in 11th place, we've got Alejandro Sendra up 10 positions. A really good race for that number 73. Damon Woods finishing in 12th with Jackson Resende here in 13th place. Maurice Lohner in 14th. Felipe Juliato in 15th. Hayata Asaga to finish 16th here with Victor Miranda in 17th. Felipe Cabrera, after running up front and then having that contact, falls all the way back down to 18th place. Cody Deep in 19th, and Jaden Ladick, the first car, 1 lap down.
And again, all these drivers have major issues. We saw 2 big accidents on the opening lap of the race. Hides, Shintani, Roberts, Benitez, Fujita, and Mudge, all unable to get to the scheduled race distance here in Portugal. It's his first race win of the season. Martin Kadlec is in a victory lane. Joey, you're with him.
Martin, congratulations. That was complete domination today at Portimao.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I mean, I had a good qualifying. Finally, I managed to pull a good lap. I've been struggling a bit the last couple of races with my qualifying, so thankfully I put it away at this time. And I was a bit lucky, of course, that the guys behind me were fighting. So a bit of a lonely race, but I'm glad I managed to keep my concentration and finish first, which is beautiful.
Well, you had a top 5 at Mugello on the opening round. You were right in the thick of it there at Zolder earlier today. What do you think just kind of clicked with you and this racetrack that you won by 5 seconds over everybody?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite tracks, so that's definitely one of the key points here. And yeah, I would say just the qualifying and getting a bit lucky with guys behind fighting. Also, I had good race pace, so yeah, everything just kind of clicked and I could pull away from the guys, and I'm happy. I'm very happy.
Well, thank you for coming out and racing here with us. Congrats on the win. You are winner number 3 in the series.
Thank you.
That was Martin Kadlec, and I believe up next we've got Aaron Vasquez joining us again. Congratulations on yet another second place, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, that's insane because I start P15 in the race, so I don't expect to finish P2 to be honest. But I can do a good start, and then I can overtake some drivers in race. And in the last lap, I scared a bit with my teammates because we did a 3Y and I think I crashed. So yeah, I'm very happy with the result. I don't expect this result, so yeah.
You mentioned it wasn't necessarily a great qualifying effort, but you drove up 13 positions, something we don't see very often in this type of field with the F4 car. Was it just everybody being bunched up? Was it the slipstream, or is it just you liking this racetrack?
Yeah, I mean, the quali here is important because the start is more or less dirty, I can say, but this time was very clean. So I think my quali was a bit bad, but I have a good racecraft, so I can overtake very, very fast this driver. So yeah, I'm very happy. I told you already, but I don't know how I finished P2. I don't have words.
Well, I think you should be happy not only with Zolder, but also this performance at Portimao. What a race for you. Congratulations on the second place.
Thank you, guys. See you. Bye-bye.
That was Aaron Vasquez driving the number 71, and it brings us to our third place finisher, Hugh Barter. Congratulations on the podium effort.
Thank you. It was quite the race, so it was good to come away with a podium finish.
I mean, you're telling me it seemed like you were just smack in the middle of a huge traffic pack the entire time, and it was elbows out the whole race for you. Did that kind of seem what it felt like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's what you get with F4 at the end of the day. I really wanted to finish at least. Obviously, what happened 2 weeks ago at Okayama wasn't ideal, basically being in the lead pack the entire race to then finish P8 or something like this, and then by my own mistake, the first race today I didn't qualify due to an off track, and then obviously just didn't get past lap 1 because it was a bit of a mayhem. So the main idea of that race was to just finish, and so to get away with the podium was good.
So what you're telling me is that this is kind of the redemption drive for Hugh Barter over here, and this is the Mr. Barter we're going to see in terms of performance the rest of the season, yeah?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, definitely the pace has been there. Just, I'd say, putting myself in some questionable situations, as well as just bad luck as well.
Well, congrats on the podium effort here. It was a great race for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was the driver of the number 68, Hugh Barter, finishing with his first podium effort of the season.
We saw a couple of new faces, and yes, we knew the Alex Dunns and we knew the Carrolls would be in the conversation. I don't think McEwen's much of a shock either, but two new race winners here in this second doubleheader of the championship. And again, this championship picture will continue to change. Normally you get later in the season and you might think that the championship battle will become clearer, right? Oh, these drivers are pulling away. I think we had the opposite effect tonight. I think things are more competitive now through 4 races than they were through 2. Here's a look at the standings. Alex Dunn does indeed maintain, but with Graham Carroll falling from 3rd to P6, and with Alejandro Sendra dropping as well from a number 2 spot down to 4th, it has opened the door for McEwen and Vasquez to join the conversation.
I think that Aaron Vasquez took the opportunities today with a double podium finish, 2 second places to jump up into that 3rd place position in the championship. And then, of course, like we saw, Luke McEwen with that dominating win over at Zolder to really close in the gap to Alex Dunn. We didn't mention him too much. He better look in his rearview mirror for the final 4 rounds.
Halfway there, 4 races down, 4 races to go as we continue on the road to $25,000. That'll continue in a couple of weeks' time when we return on October the 12th. But again, we don't know, and these drivers don't know where we'll be racing. The racetracks for 5th and 6th races of this championship will be announced the Friday before our coverage. That'll be October 11th, and we will see you on Saturday, October the 12th, live coverage starting at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Until next time, that is it for us here tonight from Portimao. On behalf of our entire team at iRacing and for your broadcast crew tonight, for Joey Atterbury and myself, Evan Pasoko, want to say thanks for tuning in and congratulations to tonight's race winners, Luke McEwen and Martin Kadlachik. We're back in a couple of weeks' time, Saturday, October 12th, for rounds 5 and 6 of the FIA SIMAGIC F4 eSports Global Championship. Until next time, good night from Portugal.